they constantly reveal the things that are bothering them through this passive aggression, these subtle digs. And you are not allowed to think bad or wrong of her ever. She only wants you to believe the things that she says about herself and the persona she has, and she doesn't want you to think any other way. And if you do, you will be punished. Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy, and today we're going to talk about the covert narcissistic mother. Now, covert narcissism is something that we've talked about on this channel that is very manipulative, and it's very sneaky, and it's tricky to detect, and it's not the same as, you know, the textbook version of narcissism or the narcissism you see on the internet. So I think it's so important to be aware, so you could see, you know, if something's off with your mom but she doesn't fit the descriptions online, this will help you to be like, oh, this, you know, fits more of her description. And it's so important that you learn and understand these things, so that way you can learn better how to heal and how you can have, or how you can navigate the relationship moving forward if you so choose. Some people choose to navigate and try to figure out how to have a relationship, and other people choose to cut it off. That's completely your decision of what you choose to do with your mom, depending on how she affects you and what works for you. I also have my course, 11 Weeks to Break Free from the Past, where I talk about the 11 inner child wounds: shame, guilt, the ego, manipulation, which I highly recommend you go ahead and check out. The links down below. Let's get into today's video. So let's go through some key points to see, you know, what you probably have experienced if you had a covert narcissistic mother. First things first is something feels off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Just something doesn't feel right in your relationship, and you feel off and you feel unhappy, but you just kind of pass it off that maybe you're the problem, or you're doing things wrong, or, you know, maybe you're being too harsh, or that, you know, maybe you're misreading the situation. Maybe you've determined that, you know, your mom is just a little quirky and that's just who she is. One of the first things you'll notice is, like, the outward appearance, there's kindness, but behind closed doors, you get a different mom. So to the outside world, your mom is probably really generous, someone that people maybe are like, oh, you know, your mom's cool, I like your mom. You know, she does a lot for you, you'll get that. Or your mom will be involved in, like, the church, or she'll be involved in doing a lot of activities, like maybe very involved in your school, or maybe she's very involved in you know, the soup kitchen, whatever it is. Like, she's very generous and kind, and gives to people around her. And she also will make it appear that she's very self-sacrificing. You know, the language she uses, like, oh, everything's always about my kids, you know, I'll do anything for my kids, I gave up this for my kids, you know, everything is revolving around how she's a great mother to her kids. She will go out of her way to be seen as, like, the perfect mother, even, like, having the perfect family. She wants to be seen as helpful, as kind, as self-sacrificing. Now, unfortunately, this causes you to be gaslit by the general public, and it's not on purpose. They're not doing it on purpose, but you get gaslit by the general public because people are talking about how great your mom is, or she's seen as so great to people around her. So you will experience that harm and complete manipulation because of this viewpoint from general society of seeing your mom this type of way. So then there's one thing that'll cause you to not, you know, question it, but not too much, because you're like, is it really her if other people see her as good? And then behind closed doors, she will still try to make it appear that she's self-sacrificing, but it's to the point where it overrides any of your feelings. So anytime, like, if you need something and she doesn't agree with it, she'll be like, why are you doing this to me? I do so much for you, kind of thing. So it gets thrown in your face and used against you. The other thing you'll deal with is a lot of passive aggressive behavior. So she's not outright going to be this person that, I mean, she will have tantrums, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times a lot of the behavior will be, like, under the table. They will do a lot of digs, backhanded compliments, or, like, hidden criticisms. So like I said, it's not outright, but you know, after having a conversation, you feel bad, and you're not going to detect that when you're a child, because it will be kind of wrapped up in a pretty bow the way that she speaks, but you just know that you don't feel good after. So maybe some things she may, like, you know, the veiled criticism may be like, oh wow, that's a lot of food for somebody, you know, I'm just saying this because I care about you. So it's the image that she's trying to care for you, but she's also criticizing the way you eat. And it's not like it's once or twice. It's like a constant thing where you're constantly being criticized and body shamed. Or maybe it'll be like, wow, I'm surprised you got that job, I wasn't expecting you to get such a great job, like, good job, I'm proud of you. It would be tied up with a pretty bow, but it's just, there's like an unkind nature to it. Or like there's constant like subtle digs, especially in public. Like maybe they'll say something like, oh, my daughter would never do that, she's not very helpful, something like that, where it's trying to make it appear like a joke, but it's just mean-spirited and it doesn't feel good. Like they constantly reveal the things that are bothering them through this passive aggression, these subtle digs. The other thing is she will create emotional dependency. Covert narcissistic mothers need their children to need them. They need to be needed in general. It helps them continue that self-sacrificing, I'm a good mom persona. And so your mom will often make you feel responsible for her emotional well-being. So what that means is that you have to feel like you have to tiptoe around her feelings, and you can't express what you truly want to express. You can't tell her when things are bothering you. Maybe she's doing something. You can't criticize her. You can't have open discussions with her about things that maybe she's doing that is harming you and your relationship. If you do, she then will start to become that victim of like, oh, I work so hard to try to be your mom, and I can't believe you're treating me like this and you're doing this to me. And it's always that you're wrong no matter what, and you are the problem, and you are not allowed to think bad or wrong of her ever. She only wants you to believe the things that she says about herself and the persona she has, and she doesn't want you to think any other way. And if you do, you will be punished. There'll be silent treatment, there'll be a lot, maybe verbal abuse, maybe even physical abuse. There's going to be some type of punishment if you wrong her by making her feel bad, and she'll make you feel responsible for making her feel bad. Even though if you're bringing up a criticism, if she feels bad, that's on her. That should never be on you. So there's that, and there's also emotional dependency, where she may make you feel emotionally dependent on her, where she's the only one that can help guide you in life. Like you can't trust anyone, not even yourself. You only are supposed to trust her. And if you don't trust her, then something bad will happen, or you will be steered the wrong way. So it creates this lack of trust for yourself and this terrifying fear in yourself, and this dependency on her. And you have this fear that things will go wrong if you don't listen to her, or if you don't tell her things. So you will suffer with constant guilt if you make her feel bad, and guilt if you don't listen to her and you don't confide in her. And this will be hard for you as a child and as an adult to be able to set boundaries and establish, your own autonomy and your own independence. The next thing you'll experience is victimhood as a manipulation tactic. So like I was talking about a little bit before, is that when she's ever in the wrong, or she does something wrong, or if you bring up a criticism, she immediately will go to you guys are harming her, and she doesn't do anything wrong. These things are happening to her. She's not responsible for anything. And she will make you feel guilty, and she will constantly talk about the difficulties of being a mother and how much she has sacrificed for you. And she will do this to gain sympathy and control, because how do you fight against someone that feels like everyone is wronging them? You can't, because they're not taking accountability or being open to what you're saying. So some things that if you confront her, some things you may hear her say are things like, after all I've done for you, this is how you treat me, this is how you repay me. Like, I can't believe that you're treating me this way. I'm your mother. Giving this false perception that just because she's your mom, that means that you're not allowed to disagree with her or have issues with her. She puts herself on a pedestal, and that's what you're made to believe. And that's why it's hard for people to think that something is wrong with their mom when they have that type of mom that puts them on a pedestal, and you're forced to believe like she can't do wrong and that you are always in the wrong. So what are you going to do if you feel helpless and like you can't solve problems? You're going to eventually turn it inwards and be like, okay, if they're not the problem, especially as a child, because you don't have the ability to have logic and reason, so you immediately blame yourself and go, okay, so I'm the problem and I'm wrong. And this is where overly taking accountability comes into play. And it starts with in childhood, is when your mom never takes accountability. So then you just generally take accountability. We as humans, we don't like problems being unresolved, so we got to solve them some way. So if they're not the problem, then I must be the problem, and I can try to solve it through identifying my problems. That's what you were made to believe. Another thing is that they will undermine your independence. So anytime you do try to be independent, or you try to go against your mom will cause you to doubt yourself, and she will discourage you. She will cause you to doubt your life choices and any abilities you have by saying subtle things like, are you sure you can take that on? That's a lot. Or, I don't know, I think that you're going to need a lot of help with that. I don't think you're going to be able to do those things on your own. I don't think you have those character traits to be able to do these things. You know, she'll say little things like that, and again, we'll pretend like she's coming from a caring place, but it's really coming from her own insecurities, and that she needs you to need her to feel secure and good. She needs you to be able to continue with that persona she has, that she's the self-sacrificer and that people need her, and she's really caring and selfless. So as you can see, with having a covert narcissistic mother, everything is very subtle. It's very manipulative. It's things that are under the table that are hard to detect, and they're not outright things. They are the most manipulative type of narcissist, because again, it's called covert for a reason. It's not overt, it's covert. So how you were affected as a child growing up with a covert narcissistic mother is, as a child and now as an adult, is you will have chronic self-doubt. You will constantly doubt your decisions, your ideas, your opinions. You will be a complete overthinker. You're going to be ruminating a lot on things. You just doubt yourself and your person as a whole, and you really struggle with confidence in yourself, and you really struggle to trust yourself. And the only thing that you may trust, even if it's deep in your subconscious and you don't realize that, is that you may be fighting this, but you feel like your mom's opinion may be right, and you're scared if she is right, because if she's right, then you may be wrong. And that's a scary world to live in if you don't feel like you can trust yourself. Your mom constantly gave you mixed messages and did these things that said, you know, would say things that would cause subtle doubts. And so now you're really struggling. So what you may do is you will either second guess all of your decisions, your thoughts, your opinions, all those things, or you may constantly seek validation from other people and ask them if what you're doing is okay or correct, or if they would do those things. You're constantly seeking that validation from the outside world, outside sources, specifically people that you feel like know better than you. The other thing is you'll be like a chronic people pleaser. You will struggle with a lot of guilt and obligation. So constant manipulation from a mother will cause you to feel like you need to put your mom first and think about all her needs and desires, as well as you get older into adulthood, as you will also think about like your loved ones, more of their desires, and you won't think about yourself and your own needs. And you have a really hard time establishing boundaries. You may be aware of your needs and you may be aware of your boundaries, or that you can even have boundaries. And if you do set boundaries, you will feel guilt and like you are doing something wrong, and it is bad to have boundaries, because your mother has made you believe you're not allowed to have boundaries. That's something that's really big with covert narcissist mothers especially, is that you have to tell them everything. You can't have privacy. You're not supposed to, you know, be on your own. You need them. You need to be one with them. So when you did try to say no or something, that's when they would, you know, play the victim card and make you feel really guilty, punish you in some sort of way. And so then that you take that on with your other relationships, and obviously you're going to believe your other relationships also will be like that, is that you will be punished in some sort of way. So if you ever do try to say no, immediately guilt, immediately you're doing something bad and wrong, and you will avoid that feeling. And so you won't think about yourself and put your desires first often. And when you do, you probably will feel guilt or question if you're making the right decision. So it's a big struggle with you. So you will notice you probably have a difficult time saying no and establishing boundaries. The next is you will have constant confusion and cognitive dissonance. And I have videos on cognitive dissonance, and something we've talked about on this channel is with cognitive dissonance, it's that there's like the reality and the thing that you believe, and they clash, and so then you will often pick the thing that makes you most comfortable and the easiest to deal with. That's why people that smoke, they are aware that it causes all these health issues, but they also know it makes them feel better when they smoke, so they completely, you know, say, you know, oh, that won't happen to me, I won't have those health issues, and that's why they'll continue to smoke. That's cognitive dissonance right there. So same thing with your mom, is that there's the cognitive dissonance of her public persona and then what she's like when, you know, behind closed doors and when she's not happy. And so those two clash because they're such complete opposites. It's not like, you know, it's normal for everyone to behave in one way in public and maybe a little bit worse behind closed doors, but like with a covert narcissistic mother, it's like complete opposites. She has a clean, squeaky clean persona out there, but behind closed doors, it's so opposite. And so again, like we had mentioned, it's going to create that confusion of, am I the problem or are they the problem? Which is it? And so you will constantly have this confusion as a child and as an adult. And you may be at a point where you're fed up because you maybe have read a bunch of things of like trying to help your relationship with your mom. You're trying to change, you're trying to do all these things, but it's still the same thing. There's still the same issues. You're still feeling the same bad, sad, angry emotions that when you're around your mom. You will feel emotional burnout. With a covert narcissistic mother, you are always catering to her feelings. You're always tiptoeing around her, making sure you don't say the wrong thing. You may keep your opinions to yourself because if you don't have the same opinion as her, she's gonna fight you and make you self-doubt yourself. And that's a big thing with covert narcissistic mothers, is that they do cause a lot of doubt, a lot of doubt, and they could, because they're trying to steamroll and make you believe exactly what they want you to believe. And so it will cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of just stress. And it's confusing because your mother will try to put on this persona that she's nurturing and she's loving, but you feel like she's not that loving, or she gets a power trip after of trying to give you advice, but if you don't take her advice, she's really negative towards you and is harsh, and so you feel forced almost to take her advice. So it can be really confusing. Someone that's trying to gain their own autonomy, trying to gain control of their life, but also having someone, your own mother, which, you know, they're supposed to be the one that you can trust and you feel like you can confide in, confusing you and causing doubt and harm. It's a very confusing, hard situation to be in. The next is struggles with intimacy. Struggling with having vulnerable, open relationships with people that you feel like you can trust. You may struggle with fully being open to them, one, because you may have had your mom trying to encourage and force you to only listen to her, or it could go the complete opposite where you don't listen to your mom because you're so irritated with her, and then you only confide in like maybe one or two people, and then you completely, you know, break down if you don't have those people or have those people guiding you. Like you may have anxiety or depression, or like you just get really stressed out at situation. Or you could even have a third route of just being overly independent where you don't talk to anyone or rely on anyone, and so then you don't open up to people, you don't be vulnerable to people, and you deal with everything on your own, and it's hard for people to genuinely truly get to know you because you have this big wall up. So you may be able to relate to all of this, but you also may be questioning, how do I know what's healthy, and you know, what is covert narcissism? How can I detect it truly? One is compare the public to the private. Compare what your mom is like in public versus what she's like in private. And if you see extremes, or you see behavior that's so hidden that nobody knows about and it's not out there in the public, then you can kind of see, oh, you know, this is, you know, check, oh, this is like a check on the checklist. So ask yourself, do they act differently around others versus how they act around you? Does she compliment you in public but she doesn't compliment you behind closed doors the same way? Are you often feeling drained or criticized despite their outwardly like kindness or them trying to appear kind? Pay attention to patterns. Do you feel a sense of guilt, obligation, you know, even nervous energy or inadequacy when you're interacting with your mom? Does she use subtle put downs or manipulation through emotional appeals. Then one of the biggest things is gauge the emotional reaction. How does she respond when you set boundaries or when you assert any type of independence? What is her reaction? If it's poor or negative, you know that's a big red flag. If you do try to set a boundary and she's more covert narcissistic, you will experience passive aggression, guilt tripping, or sudden withdrawal, like whether it's herself or even her affection or anything like that. So like I said, you will experience some sort of punishment if she sets a boundary. It's okay and normal for people to be sad or even upset about a boundary. Like, you know, if you get told no, that's not always the best feeling. Not everyone wants to be told no. But if they have such a strong reaction like that, where they're guilt tripping, they're being passive aggressive, they're withdrawing, and they're trying to cause harm and punish you, that's how you know there's manipulation and abuse going on right there. So how do you heal and protect yourself from having a covert narcissistic mother? First thing is recognize her manipulation tactics. So, you know, this video, the point of the video is to educate yourself. Go read about it, go do whatever you got to do to educate and understand her manipulation tactics. Once you become aware of these manipulation tactics, then you can avoid her traps, which I have videos on, you know, how to respond to narcissists, which I will leave right here. The other thing is set and enforce boundaries. You want to set emotional boundaries and physical boundaries. You don't necessarily want to talk to her about specific things because she can harm you, especially emotionally. Don't confide in her, don't trust her with things. It's got to be very surface level. You will get a pushback, and remember that you're not doing something wrong. Boundaries are important for everyone to have so you feel safe. Everybody needs their own individual boundaries because boundaries are a way to teach people how to treat you. And if you don't teach people how to treat you, then you will feel unsafe in your own environment. Anyone can do whatever they want, and then you don't know how to navigate through things, or you will get taken advantage of. So that's why it's so important to have boundaries, and you can have boundaries even against your mom. That's okay. And even if a boundary is that you no longer want contact, that's also a possibility. The other thing going into boundaries is that you want to limit emotional disclosure. So be really careful about your vulnerabilities and things you share because she can use those things against you. With this guilt, it's going to be really hard to be able to set the boundaries. Like, saying the boundary can be the easier part. Actually enforcing it and dealing with your own guilt can be the hard part. That's why a lot of people will stop and maybe give in to their narcissistic mom or just any narcissist in general. So what you want to do with yourself is challenge that guilt and that obligation. You want to ask yourself, you know, do I feel like I'm doing something wrong, or am I worried about how she's feeling? Reframe the thoughts. Instead of like, I have to take care of her, instead think it's okay for me to put my own well-being before others. Just because someone's done things for you, even your own mom or your dad or whatever, doesn't mean that you owe them everything of yourself. You can, you know, do favors here and there, but you have to check in with yourself first and make sure you're good before you do things for other people. If you're not good, or you genuinely don't want to and it's not coming from a good place, then don't do it, because that's when resentment builds. Do things because you genuinely want to and it makes sense to you. Those are the only times you should do something. The next thing is mourn over the mom you don't have. The thing is that when I have lots of videos where I talk about this and dealing with the loss of a mom, but it truly, you have an image in your head, and everybody does, of the mom that they wish they had. And that's why a lot of people have a hard time letting go of the mom that they have, is because they want her to fit that image. Hopefully one day, maybe she'll change, maybe she'll be better. That's why you keep trying to encourage a relationship. But you have to accept that your mom that you wanted in your mind, she's never going to be that person, unfortunately. And you have to mourn over that and be sad and let go of that dream, because we do have to mourn over our dreams and mourn over things that we don't have. That's so important, because even so, you know, dreams, our brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So when we imagine it, we feel like it can happen, it's actually happening. So you have to mourn over that the same way that you imagined it was happening. So deal with that loss, deal with that mourning, and you will have to eventually accept and rebirth a different relationship with your mom. Whichever way you see fit, that is your personal decision. So you don't want to share too much. Again, you want to be careful what you share. And if she's ever pushing questions, you can say, I want to just leave things the way they are. I don't really want to discuss that. That's not up for discussion, whatever you want to say. The other thing is that you need to heal your inner child. So this is where the self-soothing, the self-parenting language comes in. That's where you give your inner child the things that you didn't have and that you needed. So if you felt like you didn't have the childhood that you wanted, go play. If you felt like your mom wasn't very warm and comforting, give yourself that warmth and that comfort and that love. And you want to truly nurture that inner child and not deprive what he or she didn't have growing up. And there's going to be a lot of self-soothing that's going to be involved. You want to tell yourself things that you wish you heard as a child. I love you, I got you, I'm so happy you're here, you're doing a great job, you have all these positive things. Telling yourself all those things that uplift you and validate you, so you seek less of the outside validation, you validate yourself and you get it inwards. And you really want to focus on self-compassion, giving yourself any type of forgiveness that you need, any type of love, any type of understanding and acceptance. You want to truly focus on those things and attend to that parts of you that need that. Especially if you notice you're being really hard on yourself, that's a good time to give yourself that acceptance and deal with that guilt and that shame that you have. And you also have to cater to that inner child part of you that believes that your parent behaves like this because it's your fault. And you have to remember, it's not your fault. These are their own wounds and their own decisions that they're making, and it has nothing to do with you. And the last thing is, you definitely want to form a support system, have friends. You can form your own family and really have those people. If you have an older person in your life that you see as a mother figure, you can also include them in your life and have that type of dynamic. It won't be the same, but you really need to make sure that you have that support, because dealing with having a covert narcissistic mother is so painful and it's so difficult to deal with because you don't have that mom that other people have. And it's not to say other people don't have issues with their mother. We're all humans, we have issues with everybody. We don't agree on everything, but it's different when you have a covert narcissistic mother, because she is somebody that is stuck at the age she was abused at. You're dealing with like a child. You're dealing with someone that can't self-reflect, is not self-aware, someone that hurts others to feel better about themselves. Like, that's very painful to have, knowing that this is your mom. So it's really important for you to gain that support around you to be able to deal with the loss of a mom. So what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys.